And I'm not going to actually introduce everyone. I think most of us know why we're here. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone that's here from the area, the district, other clubs. We really appreciate you being here to share this day with us. And I just want to point out that if Kevin were here today, I know without a shadow of a doubt, he would want us to laugh. So my ideal is that the tone for this meeting be one of lightness and just sharing stories. I know he wouldn't want this to be a somber day, even though I know we are all saddened by Kevin's passing. So obviously this meeting is going to be very different than our normal meetings. So just bear with us, go with the flow. And I'm going to turn it over to our Toastmaster, Deborah Menier. Deborah.
Thank you, President. The theme for today's meeting is celebrating life. And in that spirit, we're coming together to share our favorite memories of Kevin Bryant. Now, I asked this question of each person via email who is helping lead us through this meeting. And rather than sharing their responses myself, I think it's more appropriate that they share their own answers. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Dory Nolan, who is going to lead us in our invocation and pledge.
Thank you, Toastmaster. Sometimes we forget that life doesn't go on forever. I personally want to be immortal, but doubt that's going to happen. And being Irish, I know Kevin had Irish background. I found a beautiful Irish prayer. Remember joy. Don't grieve for me, for I'm now free. I follow the plan God laid for me. I saw his face, I heard his call. I took his hand and left it all. I could not stay another day to laugh, to love, to work or play. Tasks left undone must stay that way. And if my parting has left a void, then fill it with remembered joy. A friendship shared, a laugh, a kiss. Ah, yes, these things I too shall miss. My life's been full, I've savored much. Good times, good friends, a loved one's touch. Perhaps my time seemed all too brief. Don't shorten yours with undue grief. Be not burdened with tears of sorrow. Enjoy the sun of the morrow. Kevin was an amazing person. Never had anything bad to say about anybody. He was witty, friendly, and a very good support system for his fellow Toastmasters and friends. He is going to be missed. And with that, we will join in a pledge and some laughter. And Nick, do you have a flag? Thank you. I pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Take a moment, take a deep breath, and smile for Kevin. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Dory. Our joke master for today is Nick Sager. And in honor of Kevin, Nick will share a joke.
Good morning, everyone. When I first met Kevin, I had trouble calling him Kevin. I think because his last name being Bryant, I'd often call him Brian at first. I don't know, he just didn't seem like a Kevin to me. Again, at first, he more fit Brian to a T. That's just the beginning of the jokes. If you didn't get that one, I'll pause for some effect. So he's, as Brian, one of the things I knew about Brian was that he was an accountant, and you could always count on him to add on. I don't remember any specifics, but I know that, say, if someone had told the classic joke, the two cannibals are eating a clown, one turns to the other and says, "Does this taste funny to you?" He would then quip with something like, "I don't know, but it doesn't matter. It's all in jest." Or there's what there's another joke related to funerals. The one person goes up to give a eulogy, asking the spouse if he could give a word, and the spouse grants it and gets up there and just says plethora. And as that person goes to sit down and take the seat back at the pew, the wife, shakes his hand and holds it tight with tears in her eyes and says, "Thank you. That means a lot." Not to be outdone, someone else would come up, and this would be Kevin's contribution to give his word, and he would simply say bargain. And the spouse too would take Kevin's hand and say, "Thank you. That means a great deal." The other thing that I always appreciated about Kevin's humor was the way he would take the word of the day and have his way with it. I don't know if it comes from his accountant background, but he would always like to, I guess, do math with the words. I guess as an example, if the word of the day was beholden and he had the table topics answer, he would find some way to tell a story about this wonderful bed and breakfast, and honeymooners and older couples could go and stay and cuddle, and it would just be where you could go and get fresh honey from all the beehives, and that's because it was called the Behold Inn. And it just, that sort of thing would inject a new kind of life and take on every meeting that he contributed to, and I'm grateful that he was a part of our club and our district. And I would like to now turn it over to our word master.
Thank you, Nick. When I was trying to come up with a word that would describe or potentially describe Kevin, I went through a bunch of words, but what I landed on was genuine. So genuine, the definition would be truly what something is said to be, authentic. Some of the words that mean the same thing as that are honest, sincere, truthful, unhypocritical, meaning what one says, straightforward, direct, frank, candid, and open. I think Kevin was all of those things and more. And just to follow up with what Nick was saying, I'm sure that when Kevin got to the pearly gates and he was talking to St. Peter, he said, "Hey, can you please not peter out on me and let me into heaven?" And then when he got into heaven, he probably was talking to God and said, "Hey, well, God said, I'm really glad you made it into heaven, Kevin." And he said, "Well, hey, I just caught the hay van. Okay, and I got into heaven." So, he's up there making people laugh right now. He's still here with us right now, making us laugh. I don't know that I've met another more genuine person than him. As people have said, he's never had an unkind word to say about anyone, always made us laugh, was always there to help, not only in our club and in our district. The other thing that I was going to say is that even though he's not going to be with us physically in our club anymore, his mark will remain for a long time. He has definitely put his fingerprint on this club, and we will all be thinking about him for the rest of the time that we're involved with our lives. And with that, I will pass it along to, who am I passing along to? I usually pass it along to the Toastmaster, but you threw me for a loop because you're passing on to the next person.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
I'll pass it back to Deborah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for that. And I didn't know, I didn't know Kevin well. I'm new to the club, but genuine sums him up so perfectly. I got that from him, was happy, so happy that someone with that sense of humor was going to be somebody I got to listen to on Saturday mornings, right? That is perfect. All right. Now is typically the time for our tip and quote. Today, we have Ed Zinkowitz, who is going to share memories of Kevin with us all. Ed.
Thank you, Deborah. Fellow Toastmasters, glad to be here this morning. Honored guests, a plethora of them. I'm glad you're here. I thought today that in part, we would let Kevin speak for himself. So I brought some videos of speeches that he gave. This one is a particular favorite of his. I'll tell you why in a minute, but it's his icebreaker.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. Are you ready for a magic trick? Watch this. You take a couple of Midwestern parents, a little bit of Southern upbringing, a little bit of education, just enough to be dangerous, a Toastmasters group, and just a little bit extra. Put it in the box, mix it up. What pops out? This crazy guy. Today, I am reintroducing myself. As Toastmasters, the first speech that we give is the icebreaker speech. I don't need any candy, but I wanted to reintroduce myself because, with the exception of perhaps Bob and Hamilton, I don't think anyone in this club was here when I first gave my icebreaker speech. I was probably a little less nervous, but I'm still a little nervous today. I'll admit it. Let me start at the beginning. Well, let me start before the beginning. My parents are both from the state of Iowa. Go Northern Iowa, go Iowa State, go Hawkeyes. They met at Iowa State University, where my dad was a dairy farmer in Story County, and my mom was the son of a pastor in the upper northwestern part of the state. She had received a scholarship for her grades on an SAT test, and he worked on the dairy farm while he was putting his way through school. She later, after majoring in home economics, she later moved on to Case Western Reserve, where she went and got her master's degree there. My dad stayed there and they had a long distance relationship. Later, after they moved to Ohio, my dad actually got a job around Elizabethtown, Kentucky, where I was born. Elizabethtown, Kentucky is a suburb of Louisville, but it's not a suburb of Louisville. It's far enough away from the town where it's its own little city. And I grew up in a suburb of the suburb of Louisville. I grew up in a little town called Cecilia. Well, I spent a few years there anyhow, long enough to remember wanting to go to school, taking my little Mother Goose book out to the bus stop and saying, let me on, and having the bus driver explain to me, no, you can't go to school until you're a certain age. I guess I still haven't reached that age yet. My dad had worked for Carnation Company. Carnation Company wasn't the hot chocolate company. It wasn't the boutonniere company. It was actually a branch of the Carnation Company that was associated with farming, because it was I don't know how to explain this in a mixed crowd, but basically you have a male bull and a female cow, and Carnation Company did something with that situation. And the Carnation Farm was in the state of Washington, Northwest, and it grew into an international company off of a small farm in the state of Washington. My dad worked in the Mid-South. He would go to different fairs, different places, and have exhibits for the Carnation Company. He did such a good job that he was offered a position at a new startup in Buffalo Valley, Tennessee, called Beefalo East. Beefalo East was a new concept where people would take a buffalo and a regular cow and make a better product from it. So he would sell that concept at different fairs and different places. He was a vice president of this company. I remember one time I got a chance to go to the Mid-South Fair down in Memphis while my dad was putting on a little exhibit there talking about his product. That would become important later on because after I graduated from high school in Cookeville, Tennessee, and had a chance to experience the different options that Cookeville offered and the small farm where we grew up, I got a chance to go to the University of Memphis. Cookeville was a unique place because it was the place where the face mask was first invented. It was also the home of a Wilson sporting goods plant, and it was a farming country, sort of a southern version of the Middle West. Carter country, but still a farming country. And very Middle Western in terms of values. I was very occupied and busy trying to help my family on the farm. We had lost our house in the tornado of 1974. We had gotten to the basement just a couple of minutes before the tornado hit. My dad was on the road and the floor caved in and all the bricks would have rolled down on our family except it hit the washing machine, and some of them tumbled onto my mom, but fortunately we survived. Many of our neighbors weren't as fortunate. The community where we grew up had lost many of its residents as a result of that tornado. At that point, I think my mom and dad had a discussion, and my dad came off the road. My mom was working at Cookeville General Hospital. She was in charge of the dietary department. And my dad had started a small dairy farm. I wanted to play football, but didn't get the opportunity because I was so busy helping out around the farm. So I served as equipment manager for the football and the baseball team in high school. As luck would have it, that gave me the opportunity to go to school at the University of Memphis. A few years later, after I graduated, I got a job here in Nashville and have moved here and lived here ever since. Lost my dad a few years ago to Parkinson's disease, brutal disease. I could discuss that later. But for now, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. Thank you, sir.
I think you readily heard how spontaneous he is with humor and joy and bringing those things to us. I was grateful for him. I is a very helpful sort of person. One of the things that happened to me actually happened to my wife. And I thought it was a very intriguing story. She was getting off a train in England, and someone yelled behind her, "Somebody help that elderly lady." I built that into a speech. And one of the critiques that came out was, you need to make that more personal. Why don't you, somebody help the elderly gentleman? And I said, well, Kevin and I discussed that. And I said, I don't really feel comfortable. It didn't happen to me. So he said, go stand over there. So I stood up from the table and he said, somebody help that elderly gentleman. Problem solved. Thank you, Kevin. It's interesting. Kevin, if you look at his entry in the membership log, he received a CL, which is a competent leader, and an ACS. But he did far more than those official designations would indicate. I think he was closer to being a DTM than he claimed and could have if he wanted to. But one of the things he did for me, I got assigned to be a sponsor at Aramark, and come to find out, which I hadn't realized consciously anyway, that's where he worked. And I said, Kevin, why aren't you doing this? He said, no, you just go ahead. Well, today I'm a DTM because of his generosity. And I know Kevin was an area director. In fact, may have been an area governor, which is predates directors. But so I know he has many more leadership qualities than his official designation would suggest. I do know a couple of things about Kevin. He started speaking about a place called Cookville, and that was very near and dear to his heart. I think it would be appropriate if we shared what he had to say about it.
Yeah.
Oh. Very good. Thank you. I think I'd like to get one of those.
It's like 20 or 40.
How many friends does he have? I got you down for 10 seconds.
Linda, do you see what we're up against here? We're just a room full of comedians. Okay, our second speaker this morning is Kevin Bryant. When I asked Kevin about where he would like to go, of course, Kevin gave the traditional, an answer you would expect from Kevin. Kevin said that he would like to be beamed up to Mars. He doesn't want to take the one-way trip. He doesn't know if he'll like it, so he wants to have an opportunity to come back. So he wants to be beamed up and beamed back. Kevin is doing a non-manual speech this morning, and the title of his speech is My Hometown. Kevin.
Election season is upon us. Fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. Our elections are coming up. Get ready. Our club elections take place in May every year. And so our distinguished president will be moving on to another role, perhaps. And we have to find a new president and new officers to engage our club and to bring our club to the next level. I'm working on that process. And so I wanted to let you know, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests, the elections are coming. And after you're elected, you'll take a short drive to a little town called Cookeville, Tennessee. And you'll go through a leadership training that will be very worth your while. However, if you're one of the lucky winners, I want to tell you just a little bit about the town you'll be visiting. The town of Cookeville, Tennessee, my hometown. To talk history, you have to back up just a little bit. Cookeville is on the Upper Cumberland Plateau. It was one of the last areas of the state of Tennessee to actually be developed. Here's why. Originally, Tennessee was part of the state of North Carolina. Hernando de Soto from Spain did go up around the Mississippi River, around the city of Memphis. That's why we have DeSoto County, Mississippi. However, that area was not dramatically developed. Most of the development came from North Carolina over the mountains and into Tennessee. A lot of the folks in that area were Anglican and Scottish in nature, and their agriculture trading background made them pro-British. However, the British passed a law preventing settlement past the Appalachian Mountains, and it made many of the people in the area frustrated enough to join the revolutionary fight because they wanted to develop the area around Tennessee and Kentucky that Daniel Boone and some of the other explorers had developed. After America became established as a country, people began pouring into the area of the state. Most of the settlement took place around East Tennessee. Some of the settlement with James Donaldson and his crew came up around the Salt Lick that became Nashville, Tennessee. And then as we developed presidents from the state, such as Andrew Jackson and James K. Polk, the areas where they were at became developed. The area of Memphis actually was developed in the 1820s because Andrew Jackson was part of a development company that developed that city, along with the Winchester Group and some of the others. However, Cookeville was bypassed in the Upper Cumberland Plateau because it was a very mountainous region. Plateau means it's an area that where you go up, it's flat, and then it either goes down or goes on up. In the case of Cookeville, it goes on up. Here's a Tennessee map. Unfortunately, it's not the large one-side map, but imagine, if you will, a continuum on this National Pie Day. We are here in Nashville. You drive along Interstate 40, you flip onto the other zone here, and you're nearing Cookeville. Cookeville is a agricultural area to some extent. However, it has, I mentioned, is very mountainous in terms of topography. This makes it develop. This makes the development of roads very difficult. In fact, Putnam County was formed because roads were very difficult to build in the area. Initially, until the 1850s, Putnam County was not there at all. There was not a Putnam County, Tennessee. In fact, the other areas, Jackson County, Overton County, White County, some of the other counties expanded their territory or had the territory where Cookeville is now. Many of the people that lived in that county said, it takes us too long and there's no good roads to get to the county seat. And so they met with Richard Fielding Cook, who was a plantation owner in Cookeville, and decided, let's form our own county. So the area that is now Putnam County seceded from the other counties and formed a new county, Putnam County, named after a Revolutionary War soldier by the name of Putnam from the state of Connecticut. Cookeville itself wasn't there. There was no actual good place or no actual rivers in the area that would lend itself to actual development. And so there was a city spring near Cookeville, and it was decided that was a good place to have a county seat. So based on the fact that there was a city spring there, and there was a good drainage area through caves and other areas, Cookeville developed. Initially, McMinnville was the big area of the Cumberland Plateau. McMinnville and Cookeville were rivals in terms of development. If you drive out here on the road, you'll see we have in Nashville 70, 70 north, 70 south. Why is that? It's because, in part, because of the rivalry between Cookeville and McMinnville. Initially, Highway 70 was built from Nashville through Sparta over to Knoxville. The folks in Cookeville and the folks in McMinnville were not pleased with this. They wanted a good road from their cities between Nashville and Knoxville. And so 70 north was developed to go to Cookeville, and 70 south was developed to go through McMinnville. That is why we have US 70, US 70 north, US 70 south today, is because of that political rivalry. In the early 1900s, the state decided we needed more universities in the state, besides the University of Tennessee and some of the other universities developing around the Nashville area. And so many of the representatives from Putnam County, including Mr. Maddox, Max was developed later, helped the area develop later. Many of the representatives from the Cookeville area came to Nashville and said, let's form a college in Cookeville. Initially it was called Dixie College, then it became Tennessee Polytechnic University, and then it became Tennessee Technological University, TTU. Many of your aerospace, many of your industrial technology, many of your electrical engineers actually came through Tennessee Tech. And so a lot of your space and rocket, a lot of your Boeing, a lot of your development of that nature actually have diplomas from Tennessee Technological University. Wow, that's quick.
He's blasting on.
6 to 8?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Past 8.5.
Sorry, folks. We'll have to discuss this at a future time.
Thank you, Kevin. Ran out of time, imagine. He knows more details. It's interesting. I was talking about Kevin's leadership role. He joined the club in 2001. His first officer position was as treasurer in 2003. From that time on, he was sergeant at arms, secretary 3 times. And the last one was in 2018, and he was president of our club when I joined in 2013. So needless to say, he was kind of formative to my understanding of what Toastmasters was about, being the first in line, as it were. I want you to know, I mentioned something about his icebreaker speech. I have another video that claims to be a repeat of the icebreaker speech as well. Apparently, one of Kevin's favorite things to do was the ad hoc speech, non-manual speech, where he would make a perfectly valid speech that would be work for almost any excuse he wanted to make in the books, but just never claimed it. So he ended up with an ACS, which is Advanced Communicator Silver. That meant he gave 30 speeches, roughly. I think it's 32 because you have to do a couple of the advanced speeches in addition. But he gave far many more speeches. The other 2 that I could show you are speeches that he gave that were off the cuff. They were non-manual speeches, one of his favorite things to do. We look forward to his contributions. Always was interesting hearing what he had to say. I will share those videos. I'll put them on Vimeo and make the links available to you so you can see. I would like to share one more short video. Dory was good enough to share a lot of pictures of Kevin that she used or took when she was VPPR. And we have a little encapsulation of Kevin's career with our club. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Kevin, very much. Madam Toastmaster, back to you.
Thank you, Ed. That was beautiful, truly beautiful. Bill Crispin is our table topics master, and he will lead us through the next part of our celebration of Kevin's life. Bill?
All right, if I could figure out how to unmute this. Instead of the normal table topics, we're going to take the opportunity to give everyone a chance to speak and say something about Kevin. I think on the agenda we had 40 minutes allotted, but I'm not sure how much we really have right now. So if the Toastmaster or someone else could let me know if we're running too long. I will go ahead and go first. I attended probably 5 or 6 meetings over months before I actually decided to join Toastmasters. Every time I came to the meeting, I was warmly greeted by 3 people. My mentor, Bob Lewis, Jeff Yetzen, for those that remember Jeff, and of course, Kevin Bryant. Just the warm greeting, the friendliness, the whole atmosphere, you really put this nervous newbie at ease, and I ended up joining the club. About a year ago, when I was conducting my first speech contest, I'd never done it before. Who did I turn to be my chief judge? Kevin. Helped me tremendously. He was always there when you needed something. He always had a nice little play on words. I loved his sense of humor. He even did puns better than Nick Sager. Anyway, he was a very, very large part of this club, and he will be missed. For everybody to get a chance to talk, if you could just sort of raise your hand, I'll look at the screen and call on you. That way we won't be talking over each other and people talking at the same time. So right now, I'll just turn it over to you guys, and if you want to speak, please just raise a hand. Daisy.
Thank you, Toastmasters and guests. I'm glad to be here, and I hope that my internet would last, and if it doesn't, well, too bad for you guys. My first speech, my icebreaker, Kevin introduced me. I was nervous, of course. He shook my hand, and he hung on to my hand a little longer, looked into my eyes, and it was as if he said, "You've got this, you can do this." And this is my favorite memory of Kevin, in how much he helped me, in his acceptance, in his, it's okay to make mistakes. It's be comfortable with your mistakes. Laugh a lot, enjoy yourself. I am grateful for Kevin. There's no way to sum up his life. It's, for me, simply remembering. Thank you.
Thanks, Daisy. I'm looking around. Anybody else would like to say something?
Bill, there are people who are raising their hand through Zoom, the button. If you can.
Okay, I am technically challenged.
Can you?
Could you just name those people for him?
Sure. So we've got Dean, Stephen, Brian Connolly, and Sundaresh have their hands raised.
Okay, Sundaresh, you can go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Kevin was bold, witty, and always had a good sense of humor. He was a source of inspiration and always ready to help like a ever-ready battery. It never loses. Always he was ready. As my mentor, I vividly remember the long conversations we had about Toastmaster speeches, roles, and the competition. Also, he was my first visitor to my home, where we mutually shared several personal topics, including food and religion. In one word, if I had to say, he is amazing. I truly miss him and hope his soul rests in peace. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Zinkowitz.
Thank you, Bill. When I was a neophyte Toastmaster, I'd done a lot of work already speaking in public, but for some reason, standing in front of a Toastmaster crowd petrified me the first couple of times. Kevin came up after. I don't know if he was Toastmaster or not, but I do remember him grabbing my hand. He said, "You were nervous. What are you nervous about?" And it was sort of, obvious. But he said, "Don't worry about it. You are among friends." I've held that near and dear to my heart and never had a problem again. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Ed. Stephen.
So Kevin was my mentor and everything. And when that started was Dory was president at the time. And she goes, "Well, how about this guy?" And everything. "What about Kevin? Would mind Kevin being the mentor?" And having been there rightfully all of, I think, a meeting, I'm like, sure, why not? Kevin's been around for a very long time. At that time, I think he was district director, and I know that he had some chops to him. So Kevin was my mentor. So we did talk a little outside of club, not very much really. and everything, but I always admired his ability to turn a phrase. I admired his wit. I also took inspiration to do some of the goofier things that I've done from what he did with especially with the word of the day. Some of the word of the days I purposely chose to be interesting words, but also to see if Kevin would try to manipulate them into his usage, which he often did, even if it meant that the word became a different word by association, which I always found amusing because that is something that I did as well a lot. And when news of his passing really hit me hard, surprisingly enough. Not surprising at all, to tell you the truth. He's going to be missed. I was looking forward to having some more time, more meetings with him and learning from him in the way that he was able to use the English language. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Funny you should mention, the use of the word of the day, because, in table topics, you don't know something on a subject, you kind of segue. Well, Kevin had a knack of segueing the words of the day into his own use and meaning. That was pretty good. Brian Conley.
Yes, wow. Bob Lewis and I were talking the other day. We joined in '96. So we had been in the club for about 5 years when he joined, came on board. And I just thought, this man, he really has a talent for dry humor, right? You would say something to him and he would just hit you almost like with a left hook of humor. So one meeting, after the meeting, we went to the Dairy Queen. Well, this is when the meeting was on the West End. And there was a Dairy Queen right there. I don't know if it's still there, but anyway, we went there and I laughed continuously for like a solid hour. It was just so funny, so folksy, like Mayberry RFD, with combined with I don't know, New York City or something. He was a profound intellect as well. You can talk to him about very deep talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Well, Dean Phillips.
What I remember about Kevin was his nature of the way he would just understand people. He was very much a selfless person. And to me, that was the thing that always stuck out to me. He was somebody who always thought of others first. He would always be one of the first people to greet you. He was always there to, if you needed anything, he would help. And I never felt like he was doing it for any purpose other than he wanted to help people. I never felt that he had any other purpose. He was one of the nicest people I've ever met, and he was an inspiration to me, and probably one of the most important people for why I have done more in getting involved with leadership within Toastmasters is because of him and his nature of being willing to give back and understanding the greater scope of things within Toastmasters. And he'll definitely be missed.
Thank you. Magnolia?
Good morning, everyone. What I would like to say about he would definitely be missed, but he was indeed a sweetheart. I just always, when I will have a conversation with him, I didn't have him in a mentoring capacity as many of you have, but just when I would have a conversation, as we use the word of the day, he was just very genuine. He was very witty, and it was just mentioned he was very selfless. I remember at one of our engagements, I wasn't feeling too hot, but I was still trying to persevere through the tasks that were assigned to me. And he was just so kind enough to just go walk over to the gas station and get and purchase me some Tylenol. And so I just thought that was just so sweet. I'm like, I can drive over there. He was like, no. I got you. I'm gonna go over here. And I just thought that was just really sweet. It was really busy that day, and I enjoyed that about him. Again, I didn't get a chance to, work with him in terms of developing anything in regards to his speech or so. But he, just the time that I did have with him, I just thought he was just a warm teddy bear. Thank you.
Thank you. Stacy?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. And thank all of you for doing this morning. This has been a wonderful tribute to Kevin. While Kevin was in Toastmasters for 20 years, I didn't actually meet him until he served as an area director for 2 years. And I just fell in love with Kevin. He was wonderful. Don't tell him I said this, but Magnolia's right. I thought of him as a big teddy bear. He was so kind and so gentle. And if I had to describe him in one word, I would say he was a gentleman in every aspect of the word. He was a gentle man, and he was also kind and courteous and respectful. And you couldn't have asked for anybody better to step up and help in any way he could. And he would voice his opinions when the time came. But to be honest with you, this morning is probably the most I've heard him speak at one time altogether. It was absolutely fabulous. Kevin will be missed. Kevin is wonderful, but I think Kevin lives on and everybody he touched. So thank you all for doing this morning.
Thank you, Stacy. Kevin was pretty good too, as far as knowing some of the proper procedures, just as far as someone coming up to the lectern, not the podium, and when you're shaking their hand, what side you walk around them, little things that it was just, just outgoing and wanted to make things run smoothly. I see one more hand up, Maddie Foster.
Well, good morning, Mr. Topic Master, fellow Toastmasters and guest. I first met Kevin when I was soliciting a ride to a Toastmasters deck meeting. Now, I thought this would be, a good way to save the money, some reimbursement money for gas while conserving resources. But really, I just wanted to meet someone new. He was actually with Sally Thompson that day. Sally was the one who agreed to pick me up. I had other offers from people I knew better, but since I really wanted to meet someone new, I just went with them. So I got in back of Sally's car, and first thing I noticed, there's about a half an inch of dog hair in the back of her car, and it was not the best day to wear black pants, and I can remember that. And I know anyone who has Labradors, you're going to have a life with fur. But I noticed quickly that Kevin was just very witty and very methodical. And I guess you had to be really concise to get a word in over Sally, because their personalities differ. But you know what? They seems like they had a connection. Kevin and I were able to share our stories. And I found out he was from Cookeville, and that's where I reside, at the TLI that we had in December. And this was the TLI that lasted from like 9 in the morning to 7 at night. And Kevin and I pretty much hung out the whole day. And the time just flew by. Kevin had a slower approach to his delivery, but you were always on the edge of your seat because you were always engaged with anticipation, because there's going to be some witty pun or comment that's going to be spoken. and I'll miss him. And I encourage everyone to try to meet someone new from time to time. And it was just this morning where I realized I have a connection with Dory. You know, our ancestors, you know, probably both picked potatoes under the gray skies of Ireland. You know, Dory and I, you know, being redheads, we were probably the only two kids at the pool that wore t-shirts. You know, so always take an opportunity to meet someone new. You know, it can really change your perspective. Rest easy, Kevin.
Thank you, Maddie. I don't see any more hands raised. Bob Lewis.
Good morning, Toastmasters. If I talk too long, just cut me off. Kevin was kind, modest, loyal, quiet, and funny. Always quick with a joke. Very subtle, dry sense of humor, and probably one of the funniest guys I've ever met. He was almost always at Toastmasters. His attendance record would probably beat anybody in the club. At the same time, it was hard to get to know Kevin well. Even in those icebreaker speeches and so on, you talk about his parents instead of him. I'd like to give you two quick stories, though, personal stories. One is that he once gave a speech to roast me, but he ended up saying nothing but nice things. So nice that I took that video and sent it to my kids. What a guy. The other story is that we attended one of the leadership meetings in Cookville, and afterwards, Kevin invited Julie Perry and myself, and I'm not sure who else, to his house, to his mother's house in Cookville. We followed him, and we went up mountains, down mountains, around. He lived way back. I could never find it again. But when we got there, his mother put out a spread like you wouldn't believe. Corn on the cob, fresh vegetables, and whatever that we had. And I'll never forget his kindness. And I actually met his sister, who contacted me when Kevin passed. So that dinner at his mother's house sticks out in my memory as something that I'll never forget. He joined in 2001, and he would do anything necessary to help the club along. He joined my leadership team the year that I became president. He was either sergeant at arms, I believe he was sergeant at arms, but he probably served in every leadership role in the club over his 20 years, because he joined in 2001. To the fact of where he became president and continued our record of being president distinguished clubs. More power to him. He was, as many of you know, very religious. And I know he's in a better place now. And he's looking down on us, trying to think of a joke to lighten the mood. So that's the way I will remember him. I love Kevin, and I'll miss him greatly. The club will not be the same without him, but obviously we have to soldier on. Kevin, rest in peace.
Thank you, Bob. Jabbar, I think you had your hand raised.
Yes, good morning, Toastmasters and Mr. Topic Master. I wanted to share a brief experience I had with Kevin. My experience with him was brief at one of the offers training session that we had in Franklin, Tennessee. And I remember going there. Kevin was a sergeant at arms, if there was a sergeant at arms. And what I remember about Kevin at this particular officer's training, as oftentimes as you all know, at officer trainings, things come up. We may run behind schedule because things do pop up per se. And the food at the time was an issue, particularly, I think it did not arrive on time. But Kevin was the guy that I recall that left to go get the pizza that was needed to make that a success in Franklin, Tennessee at the YMCA over there. And he comes back in with the pizza, and I think if I recall, there were Subway sandwiches. And I remember going over to Kevin because I like good food. I said, Kevin, you guys know how to select good food at an officer's training session. This has made my day, in addition to everything else we covered, but the food. But what came to mind to me with him is one of the values, as you all know, Toastmasters has, and one of them is service. Is one of the core values that Toastmasters has is service. And today, as you guys are sharing those videos and my memory of him at those TLI trainings with the Sergeant of Arms, Kevin was about service. He was always willing to serve people and serve others. And you guys did a phenomenal job today in sharing that today through the videos and your words. So we need a few more Sergeant of Arms like Kevin to make our clubs outstanding. So thank you guys for sharing Kevin today with us. And I had a pleasure of meeting him briefly at TLI for the officers training, going out and getting that pizza so we could have lunch and get things back on schedule. So thank you, Kevin, for that.
Thank you for those words. Looking around, is there anyone else that would like to say anything? I don't see any hands raised. So also, I think we've got about 25 minutes so far. So I was going to ask Toastmaster if we need to go ahead and get back onto the schedule. But if anybody else would like to say something, please just go ahead and jump in.
Bob
Would
Lewis.
you like to say one more thing?
Yes, my wife passed me a sheet of paper here, and she would like to know Kevin Bryant's mother's address. If anybody has that, would you please call me or send it to me somehow? Thank you.
I think it would be important to share that with everybody, the club particularly, if anybody has it.
We might be able to ask for that if she's there, if any of us are going to the service Sunday.
How many of you are planning on going to the service on Sunday? I'm going to try and make it. I'm not sure.
At this point, I guess I will turn the meeting back over to the Toastmaster.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you all so much for sharing these wonderful memories. They have confirmed what I suspected, in that I missed the opportunity to get to know a truly beautiful soul. And for that, I am truly sorry, and I am truly sorry for the loss you all are feeling at this time. We have 8 minutes left in our meeting, and at this point, I'd like to turn the meeting back over to our president, Mary Dunn. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. And I just wanted to take a moment. There are some people here that did send notes and they didn't speak, so I'm going to go ahead and share what they wrote. And we also had some messages from people who are not here. And I'm going to try to find my spot here. Blanca had written that she was terribly sad to hear the shocking news and that Kevin was indeed a gift to our lives and one of the kindest persons she'd ever met. Deborah, of course, has already said basically this, that she didn't know Kevin long or well, but he was quickly becoming one of her favorites. Ibatola, who's not with us today, said, this is such sad news, Mary. I'm so sorry to hear of Kevin's passing. May God comfort his loved ones. Jackie Graybill, who left us last year to move overseas, said that she was so sad to hear this and thanked us for keeping her in the loop and said to extend prayers for his family. I don't know if this is pronounced correctly, but those of you who knew this person will know. Is it Jai Chen or Ji? Anyway, whoever this person was, said that it was so sad to hear this news. It was a great loss to society. Kevin was one of the greatest persons I have met. When I was in HVTM, impressed me with his passion for Toastmasters and his kindness. I saw him last year on Zoom. My heart goes out to his family. Kevin will be greatly missed. Stacy, of course, was here, but she did mention that she was sorry to hear about it and that he was one of the nicest people you could ever meet, always humble, kind, and funny, and that they will be posting his obituary on the D63 in memoriam page. Tiare Tagaloa, who I thought was going to be here, said, my heart is heavy in reading this. I truly appreciated him during my time with him. All of that one. And then Lynn, who is here, said, I have to say that I've been deeply saddened by the news of Kevin and have been thinking about his family and friends all week, not even knowing how to respond. And then Alan Daniels wrote, I served as an area governor for 2004-2005 Toastmasters year. After spending, I'm sorry, I'm editing in the moment here. Harpeth View was one of the clubs in my area. I cannot say exactly when I met Kevin, but I enjoyed his speaking style, where he proved that you do not have to be loud to be heard. I also appreciated his sense of humor. I had observed him competing in speech contests and also running them when he served as a district officer, and enjoyed both. Please extend my condolences to Kevin's Harpeth View family. And I know one of the things that I had remarked was Kevin was masterful at not using filler words. I am not. And so I was always amazed. And I think Madi mentioned his slow speaking style. I was always very drawn in by that. You always, it's like I could almost see the wheels turning in his head, even though he wasn't, he wasn't rushing to get things said. So I really appreciated that. And typically, I would turn this meeting back over to Deborah. And Deborah, unless there's anything else you want to say, I will just close us out if that's all right.
That's fine.
Perfect.
Mary?
Yes.
Now, it might be well said that this was Deborah's first time at Toastmaster.
I was actually going to say, thank you, Ed, that Deborah was originally our Toastmaster. And upon hearing this news, and I'm sure all of you can imagine that we shifted very quickly into changing how we were going to format this meeting. And I, as the leader, I thought, what should I do here? Should I tell Deborah no? And then I thought, no, actually it was perfect, because those of you that don't know Deborah, she jumped in right away in Toastmasters, and it was clear that she could, take control of a situation. And I thought, because she didn't know Kevin as well, it might be better for her, because those of us that had known him longer it might have been a little more difficult for us to fulfill that role. So thank you so much, Deborah, for stepping up and doing that. And thank you to the rest of the club for jumping in. There were a lot of things that we pulled together at the last minute. Ed, thank you so much for the videos. Dory, thank you for putting the pictures together. I could not have said a better prayer myself for this moment. So thank you for that. And I just want to say that all too often, I think we take each other for granted. And I'm not saying that as a negative thing. I'm saying it as a reminder to all of us, just like Marty said. If there's somebody that you haven't really spoken a lot to, reach out to them and let's get to know each other better. I've gotten to know each other. I've gotten to know other people by competing in contests and by being, a club president. So I've gotten to reach out and talk to more people. And I know that it has made my Toastmasters experience as well as my life in general just a little bit richer. So I just want to say I'm really grateful to have found Toastmasters, to have known Kevin for a brief time, and excuse me. And I'm really just appreciative of all of you that have shown up. So there is an executive committee meeting after this meeting. So for those of you that are officers, please stay on. For the rest of you, I know that I'll see you all in various and sundry places. And if there's no other words from anyone else, do I have a motion that we adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
A motion.
Second.